High value begins with self-respect, and the moment you realize that how you treat yourself sets the tone for how the world treats you, everything shifts because too often people wait for others to give them validation, to confirm their worth, to tell them they matter, when in reality, the way you carry yourself is the loudest announcement of your value, and it doesn't require approval from anyone else. When you decide to stop settling for less than you deserve, you start creating a space where the right opportunities and the right people naturally want to step in because respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you embody through your actions, your words, and the standards you keep. And the more consistently you choose to honor yourself, the more naturally it shows in the way others respond to you. Self-respect is reflected in what you tolerate, in the boundaries you draw, and in the way you choose to handle situations that test your patience or your peace, because life will always give you moments where you have to decide whether you are going to shrink yourself to make others comfortable or stand tall in your worth, regardless of their reaction. And it's in those very decisions that your value is defined, not by what you say, but by what you show, because people may hear your words, but they will always believe your actions. And the quiet strength of honoring your limits speaks louder than trying to explain why you deserve to be treated better. Self-respect eliminates the need for long explanations because the way you move communicates it all. When you build your life around self-respect, you stop running on the fuel of approval. You no longer need to chase likes, compliments, or validation to feel like you matter, because deep down, you already know your value isn't tied to how much attention you get, but to how much you honor your own standards. And that creates a freedom that younger versions of yourself might have never known. The freedom to say no without guilt, the freedom to walk away without looking back, and the freedom to stand strong in your truth even when others disagree, because once you learn to give yourself that level of respect, you no longer hand out discounts on your worth. Self-respect doesn't mean arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about knowing you don't have to diminish yourself to belong. It's about walking into a room without needing to be the loudest voice, but still holding presence because of the way you carry yourself. People can sense when someone has standards. They can sense when someone doesn't accept crumbs, and they naturally rise to the level of respect you require, because respect is a mirror. The way you reflect it toward yourself determines what gets reflected back to you. As you grow older, self-respect becomes even more powerful because you realize that time is too valuable to waste on things that drain you. You learn that protecting your energy isn't selfish, but necessary, and you start to see that you don't need to explain your boundaries to anyone who refuses to understand them, because the right people won't need convincing. They will already see the value in the way you hold yourself. And that's where your true strength lies, in realizing that your worth is non-negotiable. And when you live with self-respect, it changes how you speak, how you walk, how you engage with others, and how you handle setbacks. Because even in moments of failure or difficulty, you don't let those moments define you. You remind yourself that mistakes don't reduce your value. They refine it, and with each lesson you carry forward, your self-respect only grows stronger, making you a magnet for people who want to rise with you rather than pull you down. At the heart of it all, being a high-value woman in older age is not about competing with anyone else. It's about realizing that the value you place on yourself sets the standard for every relationship, every opportunity, and every chapter of your life. And the first step to becoming high value at any age is to decide every single day that you are worthy of respect, and then to back up that decision with the way you live. Boundaries are the clearest signal of self-worth, and when you set them like they are non-negotiable, you stop teaching people to take advantage of you, and you start teaching them how to treat you with respect, because every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to your own peace. And peace is not something that should be sacrificed for the comfort of others. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are doors that allow the right ones in and filter out the wrong ones. And the way you protect your time, your energy, and your emotions determines how much value you actually live with on a daily basis. When you learn to enforce those limits, you begin to feel a freedom that comes from knowing you're not responsible for carrying everyone else's expectations. People respect what you protect, and if you treat your boundaries as flexible or optional, others will too, because respect is reinforced by consistency. And if someone knows you will bend every time they push, they will keep pushing. But when you learn to stand firmly on the lines you've drawn, you communicate without words that your worth is not up for negotiation. Boundaries are not about being cold or unkind. They are about being clear. And clarity is kindness both to yourself and to others. Because when people know exactly where you stand, they know how to interact with you without crossing into disrespect. The truth is, boundaries test relationships. They reveal who truly values you and who only values what they can get from you. When you finally say no, the people who are used to benefiting from your yes might push back. They may call you selfish. They may try to guilt trip you, but that reaction has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their inability to respect limits. The people who truly belong in your life will honor those boundaries without needing constant explanation, and that clarity will filter your circle in a way that builds strength and peace instead of chaos. Protecting your peace like it's gold is not an exaggeration, because peace is rare in a world filled with constant demands, distractions, and noise. And if you do not guard it, it will be stolen from you without hesitation. Peace is what allows you to think clearly, to respond instead of react, to live in alignment with your values and without boundaries. That peace becomes impossible to maintain. When you realize that the way you spend your time and energy shapes the quality of your life, you stop giving unlimited access to anyone who doesn't value your presence. Boundaries also set the tone for self-care, because they force you to prioritize what truly matters and release what doesn't. They teach you that saying no is not rejection, but redirection. It's choosing to keep your energy aligned with the things and people that elevate you instead of drain you. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Until one day you no longer feel guilty for protecting yourself. You feel powerful because you've understood that boundaries are not restrictions. They are freedoms disguised as limits. And in older age, boundaries become even more vital, because you know the weight of experience, you've seen what happens when you let people walk over you, and you've learned through trial and error that not everyone deserves access to you, not everyone deserves your time, and not everyone has earned the right to your energy. Your life has taught you that the people who respect your boundaries are the ones who see your value, and those who don't are simply passing through, and it becomes easier to let them go without regret. Every time you enforce a boundary, you are declaring to yourself and the world that your worth is intact, that your energy is precious, and that your peace is non-negotiable. And in doing so, you step into the kind of strength that makes others not only respect you, but also admire you, because in a culture that constantly asks women to give more, to do more, and to sacrifice more, being the one who chooses to protect herself becomes the highest act of value. Confidence comes from owning your story, and there is nothing more magnetic than someone who has stopped running from their past and started embracing it as part of what makes them whole. Because every mistake, every heartbreak, every failure, and every lesson has carved a strength into you that nothing else could have created. And when you stop hiding the scars and instead wear them as proof that you survived, you tap into a confidence that is unshakable. Confidence is not about pretending to be perfect or untouchable. It is about being real enough to stand in front of others without apology, knowing that your journey has shaped you into someone worth listening to, worth respecting, and worth admiring, even without the mask of perfection that so many try to keep on. Owning your story means not shrinking from the parts that once embarrassed you or made you feel small, because those very parts are where your resilience was built, and resilience is the foundation of confidence. When you can look back and say, I've been through storms and I'm still standing, you no longer need to fear what's ahead because you already have proof that you can endure. Confidence grows each time you decide to show up as you are instead of as who you think others want you to be. And that authenticity creates an energy that pulls people in without you having to chase their approval. There is a certain power in someone who is unapologetically themselves because they no longer waste time trying to mold into every expectation. They no longer exhaust themselves performing for acceptance. They simply exist in their truth and let the right people find alignment with it. And that is the secret to magnetism. Not chasing, but attracting, not proving, but living. When you accept that not everyone will like you and not everyone needs to, you step out of the exhausting cycle of people-pleasing and into the steady ground of self-assurance. And that steadiness makes others trust you, believe you, and respect you without you even asking for it. Confidence in older age becomes even more powerful because it is not just theory. It is lived experience. It is the lessons gathered over decades. It is the wisdom that says, I don't have to guess at who I am anymore because I know. And when you know yourself deeply, you stop letting others define you. You stop letting society's timeline dictate your worth, and you start moving with the quiet authority of someone who has nothing to prove, because confidence is not in the volume of your voice. It is in the weight of your presence, and presence grows stronger when you have lived through enough to stop pretending. When you own your story, you also free others to own theirs. Your confidence becomes permission for people around you to drop their masks because they see that you are comfortable in your skin and they feel safer to be comfortable in theirs. And this ripple effect makes you a leader without trying. People naturally lean toward the ones who have embraced their truth because they crave that same freedom. And your ability to be real becomes an unspoken invitation for authenticity in every room you enter. Confidence doesn't mean you never doubt yourself. It doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means you've learned to move forward despite those feelings. It means you've chosen to trust your worth even on the days it feels distant. And the more you practice this, the stronger it becomes, until confidence is not something you put on, but something you live in. And that lived-in confidence is what makes you stand out without even trying, because people are drawn to the kind of steadiness they rarely see in a world full of insecurity masked by noise. At the heart of confidence is acceptance, not settling but embracing, not giving up but growing through. And when you reach a stage in life where you can say with certainty that your value is not diminished by your past but amplified by it, you walk differently, you speak differently, and you lead differently, because everything about you communicates that you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you chose to become through it. And that is the kind of confidence that sets a high-value woman apart at any age. Investing in growth is one of the most powerful choices you can make because it keeps your value expanding regardless of age. It shifts the focus from what you have lost over time to what you continue to gain. And it builds a mindset that refuses to grow stagnant, because growth is not only about achieving new things, it is about staying alive inside, keeping your curiosity sharp, your perspective fresh, and your spirit moving forward when you choose to keep learning, reading, exploring, and developing new skills. You become someone who is not defined by a number, but by a mindset. And that mindset radiates strength, resilience, and relevance in every environment. The moment you stop investing in growth is the moment you start becoming invisible, because without growth, life begins to feel like repetition, like you are simply cycling through the same routines without meaning, and people can sense that energy. But when you are actively evolving, there is a light in you that captures attention because growth makes you magnetic. It gives you new stories to tell, new wisdom to share, and new perspectives that keep you dynamic. Growth is what keeps you engaged in life and what keeps others engaged with you because it is impossible to be overlooked when you are constantly elevating the way you think and live. The beauty of growth in older age is that it is not driven by competition anymore. It is not about proving yourself to anyone else. It is about fulfilling yourself. It is about knowing you still have chapters left to write, dreams left to chase, and skills left to master. And there is freedom in that because you are no longer chasing approval or validation. You are chasing fulfillment, and that makes the process of growth feel richer and more rewarding. It becomes less about speed and more about depth, less about impressing others and more about becoming the fullest version of yourself. When you commit to growth, you also strengthen your resilience because growth requires facing discomfort. It requires stepping into spaces where you are not yet skilled, where you might fail, where you might feel uncertain, and yet those very moments stretch you into something greater. And each time you choose to keep going instead of giving up, your inner strength deepens, and that resilience becomes part of your identity. People can see it. They can feel it in the way you carry yourself, and it sets you apart as someone who refuses to settle for mediocrity, no matter the stage of life you are in. Growth also opens doors to new relationships because when you are evolving, you naturally attract people who are also evolving. You find yourself surrounded by those who inspire you, challenge you, and encourage you to keep rising. And at the same time, you distance yourself from those who prefer to remain stagnant. This shift in your circle not only strengthens your value, but also reinforces your commitment to continuous progress because who you spend time with directly influences the direction of your growth. And being intentional about your environment is a reflection of how much you value your future. There is no limit to growth, and that is what makes it so powerful. It is never too late to learn a new language, to pick up a new hobby, to explore a new culture, or to pursue a new goal. Every time you take on something new, you prove to yourself and the world that age does not define ability. What defines ability is mindset. And when your mindset is rooted in growth, you defy the stereotypes that society places on older women. You show that your value is not behind you, but ahead of you, always building, always becoming, always evolving into more than you were yesterday. Investing in growth is the silent declaration that you are not finished, that your story is still unfolding, that there are still layers to discover within yourself, and that you will not allow complacency to dull your shine. Growth is what keeps you relevant. It is what keeps you vibrant, and it is what makes you a high-value woman at any age, because the one who never stops evolving never loses her place. She continues to stand out, to inspire, and to rise no matter how much time passes. Choosing presence over pleasing is one of the most powerful shifts you can make because for too long, so many women have been conditioned to believe their worth comes from how much they do for others, how much they give, how much they sacrifice, and how much they mold themselves to fit expectations. But true value comes from the ability to be fully present in your own skin without over-explaining, over-apologizing, or over-proving. Presence means you know who you are and you are not afraid to take up space. It is the calm assurance that you don't need to bend yourself in half to be accepted, and that assurance creates a power that no amount of people-pleasing can ever achieve because people may like you for what you give them, but they respect you for the strength of who you are. When you stop over-pleasing, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your voice, because people-pleasing is a cycle that drains you dry while giving little in return. It teaches others that your needs are secondary, that your feelings don't matter, and that you are available at the cost of yourself. But presence flips that script. It says, I can show up fully without betraying myself. I can give without losing myself. I can care without carrying what is not mine. And when you live with that balance, You stop being exhausted by the weight of everyone else's demands and start feeling lighter because you are finally aligned with your own truth. Presence also communicates strength without words, because when you walk into a room centered, calm, and unshaken by the need to perform, people notice. They sense that quiet confidence. They sense that you are not desperate for their approval, and that draws them in, because true power is not in trying to be everything to everyone. It is in being whole in yourself. It is in allowing your authenticity to fill the space naturally, and that is what makes presence so magnetic. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't beg, it commands. And that shift in energy is what separates someone who is drained by pleasing from someone who shines through presence. The cost of over-pleasing is invisible at first, but it builds slowly over time. It leads to resentment, to burnout, to feeling unseen and undervalued, and often to relationships that are one-sided. But the gift of presence is freedom. Freedom to live without resentment, freedom to give from overflow rather than emptiness, and freedom to know that your worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice. It is measured by how aligned you are with your values. And when you make decisions from presence rather than pressure, you feel grounded instead of stretched thin. And that grounding makes every part of your life stronger. Choosing presence over pleasing also teaches others how to relate to you in healthier ways, because they begin to see you as someone who has self-respect, someone who won't bend endlessly, someone who can care without being controlled, and in turn, it invites them to rise to a higher standard themselves. It creates boundaries without you even needing to announce them, because presence sets the tone. And when people see that you will not abandon yourself to win approval, they either step up to respect you or step back. Either way, your value is preserved. In older age, presence becomes even more powerful because it carries the weight of lived wisdom. It shows that you no longer need to chase validation or scramble for acceptance, because you have already proven enough to yourself. You've already carried enough, you've already given enough, and now your value is in the strength of simply being. The woman who is fully present in her own life becomes unforgettable because she carries an energy that cannot be overlooked. She represents the rare kind of confidence that comes not from noise, but from quiet certainty. Every time you choose presence instead of pleasing, you are saying to yourself that you are enough as you are, that your worth is not dependent on constant giving, that your power is not found in how much you stretch, but in how firmly you stand. And when you live like that, people notice, opportunities notice, and life itself notices. Because there is nothing more valuable than a woman who knows she does not have to prove herself to anyone. She simply has to be.